Hello and welcome back to my RC channel. I'm Andy RC and today I'm going to be checking out the Furibee X215 Pro. Now this model's actually been out for a little while now. I was meant to get it about 5 weeks ago, but GearBest shipped it via the slow boat, so it's only just turned up. So a lot of you guys who are interested in this model probably already have it from looking at other reviews and things, which is a good thing because I think I might actually have a defective one, and I'll talk more about that a little bit later. But looking at all the other reviews out there, the general conclusion is that this is a great model. It's very cheap. First of all, I thought that it was out to replace the Furibee Futon, but I don't think that is the case. It's just another model offering different features. See, they've discontinued the Futon, which is a shame because I think that's a fantastic model. But the Futon, it was a fairly lightweight model. It came in at 285 grams without a battery. This one, actually quite heavy, and it's down to the fact that it's using this egg-shaped, very thick, I think it's aluminium. And the dry weight of this, so without a battery, is 344 grams. So I know it's not crazy heavy, but it's definitely heavy compared to the other lighter models out there. I mean, it looks like a light model. It's just that this metal here, very thick, and maybe unnecessarily thick. I don't know if it needs to be that strong, because you can see the arms here are carbon, and those are fairly thin. One thing that I do think is interesting about this model is the carbon fiber. So it's 4mm 3K carbon fiber, but we have this strange weave on the top there, and I think it might be a laminate if I look at it at the side. We've definitely got carbon there, but yeah, I've not seen carbon done like that before, so it may potentially be a laminate. Either way, it feels really strong and it looks great. So let's take a look at some of the specs. We have 2206 2600 kV motors. They are unbranded, but as we know with the Furibee Futon, those were unbranded and those were a fantastic motor, so I'm not too worried about that. The props that it comes with, I'm not sure on the make, but they are a 5048, so a little bit more pitch than usual, so I imagine this one is going to be drawing a fair amount of amps here. And then the motor wires here, they have a heat shrink around them, so it makes it nice and neat, which I like. It's a very neat model in general, I have to say. The frames are stretched X as well, by the way. That's becoming popular. So the ESCs, they are a 4-in-1. They are 30 amp and flash with B-Alhali S, so not B-Alhali 32. Strangely, it was set up for one-shot 125, but it will support up to D-shot 600. And then the flight controller is the Kakute F4, so it's the version that doesn't have a power distribution board and it doesn't have a current sensor. It does have a solder pad where you can sort of link up to a current sensor, and it does look like this ESC board here has a current sensor, but it's not linked up to the solder pad there. But interestingly, on the on-screen display it was set up to have the current draw. So that wasn't working whatsoever, of course, so I've had to turn that off. But yeah, this is the Kakute F4, and I did a build with the PDB version of that, and it's got a IMU on a little foam pad there, so you have to be very careful with this. And we've got lots of wires in there as well. I don't think any are touching the IMU, but you have to be careful, otherwise you could get it flipping on you or something like that. And then we have a VTX above that. Now it's all in a stack, you can see, so the VTX is part of this stack. Now it says on GearBest website that it's a switcher between 0, 25 milliwatt and 300 milliwatt. Now I've had my immersion power meter on here and it outputs 200 milliwatt on the highest setting, and it starts off at 18 milliwatt on the lowest setting, and then very quickly goes down to 13, and I was struggling to get reception out of that. And yeah, I've been struggling with the VTX in general, so yeah, more about that in a minute. But yeah, we've got a little LED on there, And then we've got the receiver, so it's the XM Plus, like one of my favorite receivers. I really like it. Now the camera as well, I think that's listed wrong. On GearBest website, they say it's a CCD camera, but I think this is a CMOS camera because it's a 16:9 camera, and it has a little bit of a delay when it comes to dynamic range. And then we have got a on-screen display on the back there to change some of the settings. We've also got a LED board on the back. You can see that's just on with cable ties, and then a huge buzzer. The LED is connected to the DIN, but there is no settings there, so it's just set on the color green. And the flight control, it's actually flashed with Betaflight version 3.2, but I think it's an early version of 3.2, so a lot of the new 3.2 settings aren't on there, so you might want to reflash that, I guess. And one thing I didn't mention yet, we have a pigtail back here for the VTX. So it's soldered direct to the board there, and you're given a Pagoda antenna. It's RPSMA. Now, I'm not going to be using this because I don't like Pagoda antennas, because I fly above myself quite a lot, and yeah, there's a bit of a dead zone when you do that on these Pagodas, so I don't like to use them. I'm going to be using a RPSMA on-way antenna. One thing I really like about this though is that they've even thought about putting these heat shrinks on here with some cable ties. You usually have to do that yourself. That's a really nice touch that they've done that. And I love how this one looks as well. So what else do you get in the package? Well, you get a load of these spare propellers, different colors, which is nice. So yeah, so it's 3 sets of those. You've got blue and green and then the purple, but you don't get given a battery, so you are going to have to use your own battery. So when I first saw this one, I thought, oh, they've actually done away with the idea of having a GoPro on there, because I very rarely fly with a GoPro these days. I think I've just been flying way too much without one, and I love how much power it's got. I love how light it feels. And the GoPro footage really is just for putting on the internet, isn't it? No, I don't sit there watching my GoPro footage, but there you go, maybe some people do. But anyways, they have provided this in the package, not the camera obviously. This is a Runcam 3 or a Session 5 mount. I think the idea is that you use some cable ties underneath here, and it goes through this part of the pod there and just sits on there. So you can run a HD camera on this one, but I don't think I'm gonna do that, because with a battery it's already up to 510 grams, and my Hyperlight Floss is 510 grams with a battery with a camera, so yeah, it's going to feel pretty heavy if I do that. So as for the Betaflight setup, like I say, it was set up to have a current sensor on, so I've turned that off. It was set up for one-shot 125, so I've changed that to D-shot 600. I haven't touched the PIDs at all, but I've changed the Super 8 to 0.8 because that's just something that I like to do. I've also put the command in, set small underscore angle equals 180. That means that it can arm if it's upside down, like if I've landed in a tree or something. That's something that I've been doing lately. I've moved the on-screen display around a little bit. I put the craft name on there as well, and yeah, I'm not going to bother messing with the LED sequence. I'm just going to leave that as green there. But as this is BL Halley S, then I don't need to calibrate the ESCs because it's running D-shot 600. And one thing that I have done is just lifted the digital idle speed slightly. I've been doing that more and more lately. It just means that you don't get flip of death as often, so I've lifted this up to about 6, I think, on the idle speed. So I have bound this to the Taranis, the XM Plus. By the way, it comes with the international version of the firmware, so you'd have to take it apart and re-flash it for the EU firmware if you are in the EU or are running the EU firmware on your Taranis. Now, it's set up to have arming on the aux 1 on a 2-position switch, and then it's set up to have angle and then acro and then horizon out of the box. I've also added a beeper on the aux 3. So let me talk about the problems that I've been having with this. It's all to do with the VTX. So I plugged in a battery. By the way, I'm going to be using the Tattoo R-Line 1300 milliamp batteries in this test. So when I booted it up and looked through the goggles, I'm getting a lot of noise. So I thought, oh, well, they probably just haven't gone through the Copters 5-volt regulator. But when you look here, they actually have the camera, and also the VTX is connected up to the 5-volt here. So there shouldn't be any noise coming through. And I did a build with the Copter F4 and used this regulator. It's got a 1.5 amp regulator on there, which is designed to power up the camera and the VTX, and it did it fine on my last build. This one, I'm just getting lines of noise across the screen. And another thing that I've found, see, we've actually got an LED on here. It tells you the band and the channel, and it also tells you the power output on the VTX as well. And there's a little button here, and it's a little bit tricky actually switching between them. So a single press goes through the channels, and then it's a double press to take you through the different bands. It's quite tricky to get. Yeah, so if I go 1, 2, then I can change through the bands, and then it's 3 presses, so 1, 2, 3, and then you've got a H or a L, so high and low, and then off. Now I've checked that with the power meter, and like I say, low starts at about 18 milliwatts and goes down to about 13 after a while, and then the high is 200 milliwatts. The problem that I've been having, though, as well as lots of noise, is that none of these channels correspond to the correct channels through the goggles. And I've got a band scanner on one of my diversity modules, and A1 isn't A1, and B1 isn't B1. In fact, I could only find 2 channels that were on the Fat Shark band, which is the A band. So either this is defective or the VTX is no good. So I'd like to know from you guys who bought one of these, are you experiencing the same problems like noise on the screen? Because I haven't heard a lot about it in other reviews that I've seen, which is making me think that I've got a defective one. And yeah, if all of this was working, this would be an absolute steal. But for me, it's been a little bit of a pain. Anyways, let's go and take it for a line of sight flight and see how I get on. Okay, let's go for a takeoff with this one. Starting off in angle mode, because this is the maiden, just to make sure everything is okay and there's no major problems. So let's check out the punch. And it disappears. It seems alright, not too noisy. Let's try acro. So these are just the stock PIDs that I'm flying on here. And again, for line of sight, it's fine. Not hearing any vibrations or any judders or anything. Nice and snappy. Loads of power. Not quite as much as these models that I've been flying on 5 and 6S recently. But still flies nice. Still plenty of power. Yeah, very fast still. And actually follow it a little bit easier this time. Yeah, I'm not sure whether this model could take anything more than a 4S. just because of those motors, really. With them being high in kV and a 2206, it might be worth trying. Oh, this is flying really nice. I'm having a lot of fun with it. Flies a bit like the Copters, actually. Very similar feel, I have to say, and power wise as well, but a lot cheaper than the Copters. Yeah, I'm liking this. Can still catch me out. Wow, that's fast. That was pretty much full 90 degrees there. Heard the buzzer going off a little bit, so. Well, the line of sight verdict is pretty good. I like it. Not bad at all, especially for the money, I have to say. Okay, let's bring it in for a landing. So this is the FPV feed that I'm getting. As you can see, lots of noise. I mean, it didn't completely stop me from flying, but it was quite annoying, and it was actually quite difficult to fly. You can also see that it's definitely a 16:9 camera, and this flight was done just before the sun went down, and I think it did take a little bit of time for the camera to adapt for the different lighting conditions. So yeah, I mean, that doesn't bother me too much. The main thing that bothers me is the noise on the screen, and it's there regardless of what the motors are doing. So even without the motors spooled up, this noise is there. I double checked, I triple checked that I was on the correct channel, and no matter what channel I landed on, I got this. So some kind of interference there. I don't know if I want to mess around with the VTX, maybe trying it from the VBAT, see if that helps, and if not, then I can just put my own VTX on there. But yeah, I can't say I was too impressed with the picture quality, and for me, I think the Furibee DarkMax is more versatile. Yeah, I think this one a beat faster than the DarkMax on a 4S because of the higher kV motor. And all of the components on this model as well supposedly are compatible up to a 6S. I mean, it's the Holy Broker Qt, so we know that can support a 6S, and the ESCs can support up to a 6S. Well, I'm not sure whether the motors can. Like I say, they're a non-branded motor, and they're a high kV motor, which is not really good for a 5 or 6S. But what I think I might do is switch out the VTX. We'll see if I can do something about the VTX, because yeah, it wasn't an enjoyable flight. I mean, it flew great. I could tell that it's a great flying model, but the FPV feed was too much of a distraction, and the fact that it's not landing on the correct channels as well, that's quite worrying and annoying. Again, you guys need to let me know if you had that problem, because like I've not really heard of it. Another must have as well is a silicon pad for the battery to sit on. This is actually the second FPV flight that I did. The first one lasted about 30 seconds because the battery just slides out. So you get given a battery strap, which is really nice, and I thought, oh, I'll be fine, I'll just tighten the battery strap up really tight. But that laminate or whatever it is, the shiny piece of carbon, it's really slippy, and no matter how tight you do up the battery strap, it will fall out, and that's what happened, and it crashed. So yeah, I think I like this model, I like how it flies, but I need to sort out this VTX, and I'm favouring the DarkMax at the moment. So yeah, also drawing a lot of amps as well with these propellers, so I'd probably stick some 5040s or 45s on there as well. Yeah, because the flight time was quite short. But anyway, I'll put a link in the description if you wish to get one, and I'm going to come in for a landing. So as always, thanks so much for watching. Please continue to subscribe. Cheers.